The fluorescent lights of Miller's diner buzzed softly as rain pattered against the windows on that chilly November evening in 2018. It was the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee at midnight and families gathered after Little League games. Worn vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the perpetual smell of bacon grease hanging in the air. Marcus Sullivan sat in his regular corner booth, watching his 6-year-old daughter Lily color enthusiastically on the paper placemat. Her tongue poked out slightly as she concentrated, filling in a drawing of what she insisted was a rainbow unicorn, though it looked more like a colorful horse with a traffic cone on its head. "Daddy, do you think unicorns are real?" Lily asked without looking up, her crayon moving in deliberate circles. Marcus smiled, setting down his coffee cup. "Well, I haven't met one personally, but I've learned never to say never. Mrs. Patterson at school says they're just in stories." "Maybe Mrs. Patterson hasn't been to the right places yet," Marcus replied, winking at his daughter. They came here every Tuesday evening, their special tradition since Marcus's wife, Sarah, had passed away 2 years earlier from a sudden aneurysm. The routine gave them both something to hold on to. Same booth, same time, grilled cheese for Lily, turkey club for him. It was a small piece of normalcy in a world that had tilted sideways. Marcus was about to flag down their server when something made him pause. A movement near the entrance caught his eye. 2 small figures hovering just inside the doorway, silhouetted against the neon open sign. At first, he thought they were waiting for their parents. Then he looked closer. 2 boys, twins from the look of them, stood clutching each other's hands. They couldn't have been older than 6 or 7. Their clothes were mismatched and clearly too small. One wore a thin jacket with a broken zipper, the other a sweatshirt with holes at the elbows. Both had the same mop of dark curly hair, the same wide brown eyes that darted nervously around the restaurant. But it was their faces that made Marcus's chest tighten. Dirt smudged their cheeks. Their lips were chapped and bleeding in places, and they had the hollow, sunken look of children who hadn't eaten properly in days. Marcus watched as the hostess, a middle-aged woman named Dorothy who'd worked there for decades, approached them with her hands on her hips. "Where are your parents?" Dorothy's voice carried across the diner, sharp with suspicion. The boys didn't answer. They just stood there, frozen like deer in headlights. "I asked you a question," Dorothy continued, her tone hardening. "You can't just wander in here without an adult. This isn't a playground." That's when the taller of the 2 boys, taller by maybe an inch, took a shaky breath and spoke. His voice was so quiet that Marcus had to strain to hear it. "We're hungry." Dorothy's expression didn't soften. "That's not my problem. Where's your mother? Your father?" The boys exchanged a glance, and Marcus saw genuine fear flash between them. The shorter one's eyes filled with tears, though he fought to keep them from falling. "We don't have anybody," the taller boy whispered. Something inside Marcus snapped into action. Before he could second-guess himself, he was out of his booth and crossing the diner floor. "Excuse me," he said, his voice calm but firm. "Is there a problem here?" Dorothy turned, clearly irritated by the interruption. "Mr. Sullivan, these boys came in without supervision. I'm just trying to—" "They're with me," Marcus interrupted. Dorothy blinked. "What? They're with me?" Marcus repeated, looking down at the 2 boys who were now staring up at him with a mixture of confusion and desperate hope. "My daughter and I are just sitting down to eat. We'd be happy to have them join us." "Mr. Sullivan, I don't think—" "Dorothy," Marcus said quietly, but there was steel beneath the gentleness. "They're children, they're hungry, and they're going to eat with us. Is that going to be a problem?" For a long moment Dorothy studied him. Then her shoulders sagged slightly, and something in her hard expression cracked. She glanced at the boys again, really looked at them this time, and Marcus saw recognition dawn in her eyes. Recognition of just how desperate these children were. "No," she finally said, her voice softer. "No problem. Let me get 2 more menus." Marcus crouched down to the boys' level, noting the way they both flinched slightly at the sudden movement. "Hey," he said gently. "My name is Marcus. That's my daughter Lily over there in the booth. We'd really like it if you'd join us for dinner. Would that be okay?" The taller boy looked at his brother, then back at Marcus. "You mean it?" "I absolutely mean it. Come on." The boys followed him across the diner on shaky legs. Up close, Marcus could see that their sneakers were falling apart, held together with duct tape. Their fingernails were caked with dirt, and there were bruises on their arms, some fresh, some fading to yellow. Lily looked up as they approached, her eyes going wide. "Daddy." "Lily, sweetheart, we're gonna have some company for dinner tonight. Is that all right?" Lily, bless her heart, didn't hesitate. She scooted over immediately, making room. "Hi, I'm Lily. Do you want a color? I have extra crayons." The boys slid into the booth across from them, moving as one unit, their shoulders pressed together. They didn't speak, just stared at the table as if afraid that looking up might break whatever spell was allowing this moment to happen. "What are your names?" Marcus asked gently, settling in beside Lily. The taller boy swallowed hard. "I'm Ethan. This is Evan. We're twins." "It's nice to meet you both," Marcus said. "How old are you?" 7. Dorothy returned with menus and 2 glasses of water, setting them down more carefully than Marcus had ever seen her handle anything. The boys grabbed the water glasses and drank desperately, gulping down the entire contents without stopping for breath. Marcus caught Dorothy's eye and mouthed, "More water, please." She nodded and hurried away. "So," Marcus said, keeping his voice light and non-threatening, "what sounds good to you guys? You can order anything you want." Ethan's eyes flickered to the menu, then away. "We don't have money." "That's okay. This is my treat. Seriously, anything you want." The boys looked at each other again, having one of those silent conversations that twins seemed capable of. Finally, Evan spoke for the first time, his voice barely audible. "Can we have pancakes? Pancakes at dinner time?" Marcus grinned. "Absolutely. That sounds perfect. What else? Eggs? Bacon? Both?" Ethan asked tentatively, as if expecting to be told no. "Both it is. We'll get you a feast." When Dorothy came back with more water and took their order, Marcus asked for 2 full breakfast platters, pancakes, eggs, bacon, hash browns, toast, the works. He also ordered chocolate milkshakes for both boys. Chocolate milkshakes? Evan's eyes went wide, the first hint of real emotion breaking through his careful mask. "Yep, best in town, right, Dorothy?" Dorothy, who had been watching this exchange with an increasingly soft expression, nodded. "Made with real ice cream. You boys are going to love them." After she left, Marcus leaned back and tried to project calm, even though his mind was racing with questions. "So, Ethan, Evan, are you from around here?" Ethan nodded slowly. "Sort of. We've been walking for a while." "Walking from where?" The boys exchanged another look, and Marcus saw fear creep back into their expressions. From our place," Ethan said carefully. "And where are your parents right now?" This time, the silence stretched longer. Evan's eyes filled with tears again, and Ethan's jaw clenched. "Our mom died," Ethan finally whispered. "Last year." Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the gut. "I'm so sorry. What about your dad?" "We never had a dad. Mom said he left before we were born." "Is there anyone taking care of you now? Grandparents? An aunt or uncle?" Ethan shook his head. "There's nobody. They put us with different people, but—" He trailed off, his small hands clenching into fists on the table. "But what?" Marcus asked gently. "But nobody wanted to keep us," Evan said, his voice cracking. "They said we were too much trouble, too expensive, that we ate too much and asked for too many things." "So where did you come from tonight?" "A house," Ethan said vaguely. There were a lot of other kids there. The lady was mean. She locked us outside because Evan broke a plate by accident. She said we couldn't come in until morning. He looked up at Marcus with those hollow, desperate eyes. But we were hungry, and it was getting cold. So we walked until we found lights. Marcus had to take a deep breath to steady himself. The rage building in his chest was hot and fierce, but he knew these boys didn't need his anger right now. They needed his calm. I broke the plate because my hands were shaking, Evan added quietly, tears finally spilling over. I didn't mean to. I tried to catch it, but I couldn't, and she got so mad. She said we were useless and stupid and that nobody would ever want us. Lily, who had been listening with wide eyes, suddenly pushed her coloring page across the table. You're not stupid. You're nice, and I want you here. The simple kindness of it, the pure, uncomplicated acceptance from a 6-year-old girl, seemed to break something in both boys. Ethan's face crumpled, and he started crying silently, his shoulders shaking. Evan was crying too, big tears rolling down his dirty cheeks. Hey, it's okay, Marcus said softly. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you or yell at you here. The food arrived, and the boys stared at it like they'd never seen anything so beautiful. When Dorothy set down the plates, heaping with golden pancakes, crispy bacon, fluffy scrambled eggs, both boys just sat there, not moving. Go ahead, Marcus encouraged. Eat. They didn't need to be told twice. The boys ate like they were starving because of course they were. They shoveled food into their mouths with shaking hands, barely stopping to breathe. Marcus had to gently remind them to slow down so they wouldn't make themselves sick. Lily watched them with concern, then carefully cut her grilled cheese into pieces and pushed half across to Ethan. You can have some of mine too. Marcus felt pride surge through him. Sarah would have loved this. Their daughter's instinctive kindness, her willingness to share without being asked. As the boys ate, Marcus pulled out his phone and excused himself to step outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the parking lot glistening under the streetlights. He dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? I need to report 2 children in crisis. They're 7-year-old twins who appear to be neglected and possibly abandoned. They're with me right now at Miller's Diner on Route 12, but they need immediate help from Child Protective Services. The operator took down all the information, and Marcus provided every detail he could. She assured him someone would be there within 30 minutes. When he came back inside, the boys had finished eating and were nursing their milkshakes, their eyes heavy with exhaustion. Lily was showing them her unicorn drawing, explaining in great detail about how unicorns could fly if they wanted to, even though they had hooves instead of wings. Marcus slid back into the booth. Ethan, Evan, I need to tell you something. I called some people who are going to help you. They're going to make sure you're safe and taken care of. Both boys went rigid, fear flashing across their faces. Are you sending us back? Ethan asked, his voice breaking. No. I'm getting you help from people whose job it is to protect kids. They're going to find you somewhere safe to stay. But we want to stay with you, Evan whispered. Marcus's heart cracked. I know, but there are rules about things like this. I'm a stranger. You're not a stranger, Ethan interrupted. You're the first person who's been nice to us in months. You fed us. You didn't yell at us. You didn't lock us outside. His voice rose, desperate. Please don't send us away. Before Marcus could respond, Lily spoke up. Daddy, can't they come home with us? We have extra rooms. And I've always wanted a brother. Now I could have 2. Marcus looked at his daughter's earnest face, at the 2 boys who were looking at him like he was their last hope, and felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. It's not that simple, sweetie, he said gently. But I promise you, he looked at the twins. I promise both of you that I'm not going to just walk away. Whatever happens, I'm going to make sure you're okay. You promise? Ethan asked. I promise. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up outside. A woman in her 40s got out, dressed in business casual clothes with an ID badge clipped to her belt. She had kind eyes and a tired smile. Someone who'd seen too much heartbreak but hadn't let it harden her completely. Her name was Patricia Chen, and she worked for Child Protective Services. She spoke with Marcus first outside, taking notes as he explained everything. Then she came inside and talked to the boys, gentle and patient, asking questions without judgment. "I'm going to take you somewhere safe tonight," Patricia told them. "Tomorrow, we'll figure out a better long-term solution." "Can Mr. Marcus come?" Evan asked. "Not tonight, sweetie, but he's given me his number, and I'll make sure you can talk to him." As Patricia prepared to leave with the boys, Ethan suddenly turned and threw his arms around Marcus's waist, holding on tight. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for not being mean." Marcus hugged him back, his eyes burning. "You're welcome, buddy. You're so brave. Both of you." Evan joined the hug, and then Lily did too, and for a moment they were all connected. A tangle of arms and hope and heartbreak. "Can we really call you?" Ethan asked when they finally pulled apart. "Absolutely, and I'm gonna call you too. This isn't goodbye." Patricia led the boys to her car. They climbed in the back seat, both pressing their faces against the window. As the car pulled away, they waved, and Marcus and Lily waved back until the taillights disappeared into the darkness. Inside the diner, Marcus paid the bill. Dorothy added something unexpected to the receipt, her personal phone number. "My shift ends in an hour," she said quietly. "If you need a character reference or anything to help those boys, you call me." "What you did tonight, that was something special." Marcus nodded, too emotional to speak. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, he sat on his back porch and called Patricia Chen. "Mr. Sullivan," she said, sounding surprised. "I wasn't expecting to hear from you so soon. I need to know what happens to them, what their options are." Patricia sighed. "Right now, they're in emergency foster care. Tomorrow, we start trying to track down any family members, though from what they've told me, there's no one. After that," she paused. "After that, we hope we find someone willing to take both of them. Twins are hard to place. Most people only want one child, and we try not to separate siblings when possible. What if they can't find a placement? Then they stay in the system. Group homes, rotating foster care. It's not ideal, but it's what we have." Marcus took a deep breath. "What would it take for me to foster them?" There was a long silence. "Mr. Sullivan, are you serious?" "Completely. Those boys need someone. And I can't just walk away. It's a long process. Background checks, home studies, training classes. And you're a single parent. That can make things more complicated." "I don't care about complicated. Tell me what I need to do." Over the next 2 months, Marcus threw himself into the foster care certification process. He attended every required class, filled out mountains of paperwork, underwent background checks and home inspections. He met with psychologists and social workers, opened his financial records, provided references. His boss at the construction company he worked for wrote a glowing recommendation. So did Dorothy from the diner. So did his neighbors, his late wife's parents, Lily's teacher. One by one, people stepped forward to vouch for him. Through it all, Marcus visited the boys twice a week. Patricia bent the rules a little to allow it, seeing how much the twins lit up whenever Marcus walked into the room. Ethan and Evan were staying in a temporary foster home with a kind older woman named Mrs. Rodriguez who had been fostering kids for 20 years. She told Marcus that the boys talked about him constantly, that they kept asking when they could see him again. During his visits, Marcus brought books and games. He helped Evan with his reading and played catch with Ethan in the backyard. He listened to their stories about their mother, how she used to sing to them at bedtime, how she worked 3 jobs to keep them fed, how she'd collapsed one day at work and never came home. "She told us that family isn't always blood," Ethan said during one visit. "She said family is people who show up for you, even when it's hard." Marcus felt those words settle deep in his chest. The day his foster care license was approved, he took Lily with him to tell the boys the news. They were at Mrs. Rodriguez's house, playing in the living room when Marcus and Lily arrived. Evan, Marcus said, crouching down to their level. How would you feel about coming to live with Lily and me? For a moment, both boys just stared at him, as if they couldn't quite process the words. Like, forever? Ethan whispered. Like forever, if you want to. The boys launched themselves at Marcus, nearly knocking him over. They were crying, laughing, holding on to him like he was the only solid thing in their world. Is this real? Evan kept asking. Is this really real? It's real, Marcus promised. You're coming home. The transition wasn't easy. The first few weeks were filled with challenges. Night terrors that had both boys screaming in the dark, food hoarding because they couldn't quite believe they wouldn't go hungry again, meltdowns over small things that triggered memories of past trauma. But there were beautiful moments too. The first time Evan laughed, really laughed, at one of Lily's silly jokes. The morning Ethan came down for breakfast and said, "Good morning, Dad," without thinking, then froze, his eyes wide with fear that he'd overstepped. The way Marcus had smiled and said, "Good morning, son," and watched relief flood the boy's face. 3 months after the boys moved in, Marcus decided to make it official. He filed for adoption. The legal process took another year. There were hearings and evaluations, more paperwork and interviews. But in December 2019, exactly 1 year after that rainy November evening at the diner, Marcus stood in a courthouse with all 3 children beside him. Judge Harrison, a grandfatherly man with wire-rimmed glasses, reviewed the case one final time. "Mr. Sullivan," he said, "I've read every document in this file. I've reviewed the testimonies and seen the progress reports from the boys' therapists. I've noted that their grades have improved, that they've made friends, that they're thriving in ways that seemed impossible a year ago." He looked at the boys, then at Marcus. "And I've observed the way these children look at you, the way your daughter looks at them, the way you've all become a family in every way that matters." Judge Harrison smiled. "Therefore, it is my honor to grant this adoption. Ethan and Evan Sullivan, congratulations. You officially have a father." The courtroom erupted in applause. Patricia Chun was there, crying openly. So was Dorothy from the diner. So were Mrs. Rodriguez, Marcus's boss, and what seemed like half the neighborhood. Ethan and Evan were sobbing, clinging to Marcus. Lily was jumping up and down. And Marcus. Marcus felt his heart expand in ways he didn't know were possible, growing to hold all this love, all this beautiful, unexpected family. That evening, they went to Miller's diner. All 4 of them, sitting in the same corner booth where it had all begun. "This is where everything changed," Marcus said, looking at his children. "This is where you 2 were brave enough to walk through those doors and ask for help. Where you trusted a stranger. Where everything became possible." "We didn't know what else to do," Ethan said. "We just knew we needed someone. And you found us," Lily said, grinning. "Best day ever." Dorothy brought out their food, pancakes for the boys in honor of that first night, and refused to let Marcus pay. "On the house," she said firmly. "Today and every adoption anniversary from now on. You hear me?" As they ate, Marcus looked around the table at his 3 children. A year ago, he'd been a widower struggling to raise 1 daughter, convinced his capacity for love had reached its limit. Now he understood what Sarah had always tried to tell him. Love doesn't divide. It multiplies. Every time you open your heart, it grows bigger, makes more room, creates more space for joy and connection and family. "Dad," Evan said, pulling Marcus from his thoughts. "Yeah, buddy? Thank you. For that night. For every night since. For not walking away." Marcus reached across the table and took his son's hands, then his daughter's. "Thank you for being brave enough to ask." Those 5 words changed everything. "What 5 words?" Lily asked. Ethan smiled, remembering. "Can we eat with you?" The answer, Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. Should always be yes. They sat there together, this family built on kindness and courage, on saying yes when it would have been easier to say no, on opening doors instead of closing them. Outside, snow began to fall, soft and gentle, covering the world in white. Inside the diner, in that corner booth by the window, for hearts beat as one. No longer separate, no longer broken, but whole. And somewhere Marcus liked to think Sarah was smiling. 5 years later, the Sullivan family had grown in more ways than one. The small house had been traded for a larger one with a big backyard. The boys had joined Little League, where Evan pitched and Ethan played shortstop. Lily had become a talented artist, her drawings now sophisticated far beyond her 11 years. Marcus still took all 3 children to Miller's Diner every Tuesday evening. It remained their sacred tradition, the touchstone that reminded them how their family was born. But something else had changed too. Marcus had become a vocal advocate for foster care adoption. He spoke at community events, worked with local organizations, and helped other single parents navigate the system he'd once found so daunting. If you have space in your heart, he would tell audiences, you have space in your home. It won't be easy. There will be challenges and setbacks and moments when you question everything. But there will also be joy beyond measure, love beyond limits, family beyond blood. He always ended his talks the same way, with a simple piece of advice. When someone asks for help, especially when that someone is a child, find a way to say yes. Because you never know when 5 simple words might change everything. One Tuesday evening, as the Sullivan family was leaving the diner, a woman approached their table. She looked to be in her 30s, nervous, twisting her hands together. "Excuse me," she said. "Are you Marcus Sullivan?" Marcus stood, nodding. "I am. I heard you speak at the community center last month about foster care adoption." She took a shaky breath. "I'm single, and I always thought I couldn't adopt because of that. But you gave me hope, so I started the process. And last week," her eyes filled with tears, "last week, I brought home my daughter. She's 6. She's perfect. And I almost let fear stop me from finding her." She extended her hand, and Marcus shook it. "Thank you," she said simply, "for showing me it was possible." After she left, Ethan looked up at his dad. "Is that why we tell our story? So other kids can find their families?" "That's exactly why," Marcus confirmed. "Good," Evan said firmly. "Every kid deserves what we got. A dad who says yes." As they walked to the car through the parking lot, Marcus paused and looked back at the diner. The neon open sign glowed in the window, just as it had that November night so many years ago when 2 scared, hungry boys had gathered the courage to walk through those doors. He thought about all the moments that had led to this one. The random decision to eat dinner at a particular time, the booth by the window, the split-second choice to stand up when Dorothy tried to send the boys away. How different their lives would be if any of those small moments had gone differently. If he'd stayed silent, if he'd looked away, if he'd said no. But he hadn't. He'd said yes. And that yes had changed 5 lives forever. His, Lily's, Ethan's, Evan's, and Sarah's memory, which now lived on in this family she'd never meet but would have loved with her whole heart. "Dad, come on," Lily called from the car. "It's movie night." Marcus smiled and jogged to join his family. As he slid into the driver's seat and looked at his 3 children in the rearview mirror, laughing, bickering about which movie to watch, so beautifully, wonderfully alive, he sent up a silent thank you to Sarah for teaching him that love expands, to 2 brave boys who'd asked a stranger for help, to every person who'd said yes along the way, and to whatever force in the universe had brought them all together that rainy November night when 5 simple words created a miracle. "Can we eat with you?" The answer, Marcus knew now and forever, should always be yes.